Hey family, I wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video for your hobby or your career goals. As an educator who likes to refer to himself as a sharer, my goal is to give my way to success. I'm gonna give my way to success. And if you know me, you know that my two life mantras are, what I know, you know. My goal is to have one impact. If I can help someone, my living is not in vain. So I've decided to base the entire educational side of my brand purely on a donation system. Yes, a donation system. And as a person who loves to share, I never want to have to make teaser videos where I give away some of the information in order to sell the rest of the information just to try to make a living like this. Okay, so let's take it from the top and put it all together. So we've got and so for that last chord, you want to check out the full tutorial on my site for only $19.95. Seriously. So to cater to the type of person that I am, I'd rather just give all the information away and base the entire system on a donation. This way I can focus on just pouring out the information to you with no hesitation. So here's how it works. To help me to sustain the process of making these videos, which requires hours of production, recording, and editing time, and to help me to sustain my living while doing it, I'm asking that you make a donation every, say, 3 to 5 videos, or every video if you like, in one of a couple ways. Now, the one that would mean the most to me is probably the easiest for you to do, and that is to donate 99 cents. Yes, 99 cents for each video where you learn something new or where it helps you in your process. The way that you can do that is by downloading one of my songs from one of my two sites, either my personal site with my original music or my performance track site that features hundreds and hundreds of instrumentals and backing tracks. This way it's something easy to afford, and I get a chance to have a home in your music library. The other options are via my Patreon account or by PayPal or Cash App. And you can donate as little or as much as you want, as often as you want. Again, I know it might seem crazy, but I'm convinced that for me, this is the way to go, because of the fact that I'm releasing and will continue to release daily videos giving away as much information as possible. Education, expertise, or just crazy ideas for what they're worth. And if not, at least share the video with as many people as possible to spread the information. That would help my overall goal as well. So again, thanks so much for watching the video. Subscribe and hit the notifications button so you can make sure you see the daily videos that I release. Thanks a lot. Take care. You're back. Thank you so much for watching this video. This particular track in the last video, if you didn't see it, it's called How to Produce a Performance Track. And this was a song that I was showing in the last video. I was putting some finishing touches on this for a client. And so I wanted to come back and do a mixing video. Now, this is going to be a really quick mixing video. And the reason why is because my particular style of mixing is really fast. The reason why that is because I don't like to take a long time to mix, because I know my limitations and I don't want to get, over, what's the word I'm looking for? Obsessive compulsive. I don't want to get overly obsessed by it. So what I try to do is I have a formula which I'm actually going to be branding starting with this video, and it's called the VPEC formula, VPEC, the VPEC formula. And VPEC stands for volume, panning, EQ, and compression. And basically what I've decided that my brand of mixing, as far as teaching, and helping others to get some ideas of, how to mix, will be a very simplistic. I'll be known as what's the word I'm looking for? Minimalist. It's minimalist mixing. That's the other way I probably could put it. Minimalist mixing. So anyway, the VPEC formula is volume, panning, EQ, compression. And the reason why I'm teaching this is because of the reality. It's actually the reality of my own situation, that when you're a musician as well as an engineer, and you got to record and you got to mix and you got to edit, as well as you got to produce and that kind of thing, it's only but so much you're going to get as far as skill in each area because you're wearing multiple hats. So in order to try to keep it realistic, in order to know that I'm not going to be a Grammy award winning mixing engineer because I don't just spend my time all day mixing, I've come up with this formula for myself and to help other people. So the reason why I've done that is because, believe it or not, just between volume, panning, EQ, and compression, you can really get a good mix. And this is something that I learned in school. In fact, when I went to Sheffield Institute for the Recording Arts here in Maryland, where I live, the first thing they taught us when it came to mixing was that we needed to spend time with these guys here, these guys and gals here. These are called faders for those that don't know. And taking these up and down gives you different volumes. They wanted to show us that, there's a tendency when you start to mix, and anybody who's tried their hand at mixing recognizes this, especially from the beginning. Since you don't really know what you're going for, you can tend to jump in and just start twisting a lot of buttons and, moving a lot of faders, putting a lot of effects, and before you know it, you're in a heap of a mess. And it's just because you don't really know what you're going for. And after a while, your ear starts to play tricks on you. You think something sounds good one moment, and then the next moment, you can't tell whether it sounds good or bad. I really relate it to like cooking food. If you don't know how to cook and you just get in there and start throwing spices around, if you throw too much salt, then you might be forced to try to add another ingredient to balance out the salt, but then you might add too much of that. And before you know it, you just have a mess. So the philosophy behind it is that if you literally just start with volume and you get the best mix you can with volume, then you're moving incrementally and you're not just dumping a bunch of spices in. Then from volume, panning. And in this case, we're going to do panning third, but I like the way that VPEC sounds. So panning will be second in the equation as far as the acronym. But, panning and volume, that is where you're not putting any of these guys up here on no effects. And I really challenge musicians to try this. Try to do a mix where it's nothing but volume and panning. And the reason why that is because, when you take volume, you can take a static song, a song where all the faders are all like this right here, just static, one volume, and it sounds flat. As soon as you start to give different volumes to different instruments, thereby giving different focus to different instruments, you automatically create depth. And depth, as well as a balance as far as things not competing with each other as far as volume, is a big jump from a static mix already. Because the listening person, the person that's the consumer or the person that's just a casual music listener, they're just listening for overall balance and just a good musical experience. So you'll be surprised just with volume what you can do without adding effects. And the good thing about volume, if something's too loud or too soft, you haven't already dumped in a whole bunch of spices and then can't tell what you need to do. You're just dealing with volume. Panning allows you to move the sound around the sound spectrum from left to right to, in between, halfway left, halfway right. And that allows you to give, spatial dimension to your mix. That's the second thing. If everything is piled up in the middle, everything is piled up in the middle of the speakers and just coming at you from one static place, then a mix can sound dull and boring. But just by moving the instruments around, and giving them their own space, you automatically separate them apart and allow them to play a bit more nicely together. So volume and panning by itself, I challenge you to just take a mix, do nothing else but just volume and panning, and be done with it. Because it'll tell you a lot, and your ear will, really hear the difference if you compare it to a static mix. The next thing from there is EQ. And EQ, see if I can fire one up here. With this EQ, you're going farther as far as carving out the sound. There are some sounds where it's more important for the higher register to come out, maybe because it's an instrument like a snare or a voice or something where this high register is the meat of the sound, or it's the juiciest part of the sound, or the part of the sound that you really want to be heard. And then there's some sounds like bass and kick and that kind of thing where this is the low range, where you want the low range to come out and you don't really care as much about the high. So if a kick drum is here in the low range and a voice is here, then by accentuating them in their own ranges on their own EQ, you're carving them out. You're carving out a mix and you're notching them, allowing them to peek their heads out where they need to be. And again, since if you take a kick drum, you may not want all this high end of a kick drum, so you may take it out. That makes more space for other instruments that do lie in this range. So you can do a lot with EQ, a whole lot. And so that's why that's third in the equation. And then fourth is compression. Let's fire one of these up. And compression is sometimes the last leg. Sometimes it could be before EQ. It just depends on the instrument. But in this equation, it is the last. Let me make sure I'm recording here. Okay. It is the last aspect of the VPEC formula. And compression allows you to take a sound and limit the dynamic range so that the loud aspect of the sound, well, let me first start by saying this. You limit the dynamic range so that it's more stable. It's more controlled. That's the better way to put it. It's controlled. What I mean by that, now I have to show you once we get going. What I mean by that is that, let me see if I could fire one up while we're doing this. Fire up a sound. And I'll explain it while I'm doing this. You take something like a bass. There are many times a bass player would play softly, and then other times when he or she would get more aggressive. Even in this case where I'm the bass player and I'm playing the bass from the keyboard, I still have expression. There are still times when I play soft and sometimes when I play loud, depending on the part of the song. So what a compressor does, and let me see if I can get it working. Let me make sure I'm not blasting your ears off as far as sound. I think we're good. So in the future, for those that are actual engineers, you see here that I have my master fader at -3, and I think I'm gonna pull it down a little bit more to be on the safe side. And of course we know that, the main thing we usually do is leave this on 0 and then match everything to meet this. The only reason why I'm taking a couple dB off, a couple decibels off here, is actually has nothing to do with this mix. It has everything to do with my screen recorder. I haven't figured out yet how to turn down the volume, how to manipulate the volume of my screen recorder so that I can adjust it to fit my mix. So right now, whether I have my mix up or down is still loud unless I just turn it up or down with the master fader. So that's why I have to use this as a volume knob for my screen recording program for right now. So pardon me on that. So let me play this bass sound. See if it's going to work for me or if the sound isn't loaded up yet. And okay, there we go. Haven't played yet. Okay. So, all right, I got another issue. Got a little bug in my system. So I'm going to restart my system and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. So we're back. So, like I was saying, here we go. Here's a compressor and here's the bass. Now, this right here is showing the bass volume. And this volume is going to go up and down. It's going to sometimes sink below this line when you see it hit, and then sometimes it'll be way up here. So what this compressor does, once I turn it on and put it into play, it's basically going to bring this down orally. It's going to bring this down and If I decide to put it here, it'll max it out here. And what that means is when you're listening, it'll still sound loud and big, but it will be more controlled. Instead of hearing a really soft sound and then a really loud sound, it'll bring the soft and loud aspects closer together. All right, so that's the last part of the formula: volume, panning, EQ, and compression. Okay, so the first thing that I have to do is I actually have to record these drums over. Right now, the drums, which are here, the drum track. See if I can get to a... Okay. So right now, this part is playing as one track. What I need to do is to get each one of those drums, kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, cymbals. I need to get everything on individual tracks. So you're going to watch me do that. And this is something where once I get it started, it's just going to roll and you're just going to listen to the drum performance by itself. But I think many people will find it valuable because of the fact that you get a chance to see every nook and cranny of the process. So those places where in most tutorials you would miss out on something small, you won't hear, because you're going to see everything. So I've got a track for each part of the drum, and then here in my inputs, I have the correct drum routed to that channel. So this is from the drum program. I'll open it up in a second. And the overheads, OH stands for overheads. They're on 3, stereo 0, 2. And then, so forth and so on. You get to the snare, it's on 3, MO2, and it's by itself. All right, and that's mono versus stereo. So enough talk. Let's just do it. I'm going to mute this channel, and all you're going to see and hear are drums over this side. Now I'm going to pull it down just a little bit so it doesn't blast your ears. And hopefully this is a good volume for you to still hear it. Okay, I'm going to take it from the top, and I'm just going to let it record the whole performance. Now let me see one more thing. Okay, so the drums don't come in until right here, so I'm going to start it right before this first hit. Okay, let's give it a roll. Whoops. Sorry about that. My screen flipped. Okay. I don't know why they did that. Let's take that again. So you can see how it comes in. You'll see each drum. So these are cymbals here. Here's my hi-hat. If you notice, even though you hear the hi-hat, you still see a little bit of information through these channels. That's because the drum program, which is here, it does something really good, which is allows for bleed. And bleed allows you to, let me see, here we go. Bleed allows for the natural aspect of microphones. If you have a drum set that's mic'd, even if you have a, say, here's your snare. Even if you have a microphone over this snare right here, the microphone's still going to pick up sound when you hit the cymbal. It's just not going to be as loud as a microphone that's directly on the cymbal. So that's natural, and that's one of the good things about this kind of program, that you can have that. But all I'm doing is allowing this drum performance to record. Turn the bass off for a second. Sorry if this is loud, I'll bring it down. I can't really tell how loud it is. Like I said, I still haven't learned how to adjust the volume from a system and monitor it to see what it sounds like until after the fact. So I'll just be on the safe side. So the only thing that I'm making sure of, and you can see it here. See, this is what a compressor will do. You see how some of these hits are soft and then some are real loud. The compressor will bring this down to tighten it up. Don't want to hear the strings right now. So the only thing that we're looking for and making sure is that this is really pushing the limit here. And we just want to make sure that here, none of these go into the red. As long as they don't go into the red, then we're all right. Sometimes I'll let a red slide here or there. It depends on if it really was distorted. If it's something that was one hit where you can't really tell, I'll just manually deal with that. Sorry, I can't tell how loud this is to your ears. Show you how it looks on the other side. So this is how it looks just to see the audio on each lane, each track by itself. You see here's the kick, so every time you hear the kick you see one of these little notches in the line that shows you a hit. After a while you get to the point, if you're a beginning engineer, after a while this is like language to you. You can actually read this just like you read words. You can tell rhythms. You can also tell, of course, easily where silence is versus hits. You could tell a lot from this. And it literally is like reading the language after a while. So this doesn't have too much longer to go because this song was only, I think, about 5. Let's see. Yeah, it's ending. Here's the end right here. So it's pretty much the end. Let me see if there's one more part. Yeah, there is. Right here, these are probably cymbals coming up. Cymbal, cymbal, cymbal. And then cymbal, cymbal. Yep. Cymbal, cymbal. Cymbal, cymbal, cymbal. Now for drummers, you notice like that sounded a little mechanical. But the thing about it is, in the midst of a song, it's kind of masked. It sounds pretty natural. It just can sound interesting by itself. Okay, so now my drums are recorded. So now since they're recorded, I'm going to stop the track. I'm going to unarm those. I'm going to take this was my first drum track where I recorded the drums just by themselves all on one track. I played them with my fingers on the keyboard. So here I'm going to make that inactive so that way that gets on. I actually meant to hide and make it active. I'm going to hide. And then now I just have the drums on individual channels, and now I'm ready to mix. So let's see. I'm going to, let me make sure that first I'm just going to make sure that there's no tracks that I don't need. So for instance, like this, I don't need this. I'm going to get this out of the way. That's the pocket piano tutorial. If you haven't seen it already, look on the channel for a piano tutorial for this song. And that was done on that track. Let's see. I want to make all these tracks medium for right now. Wait a minute, why is that not? Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. Okay. And I want to make sure that there's no extra tracks that I don't need that I could get out the way. So I got my piano, bass, organ, strings, and then I have a second string part in the song right here. Then I have chimes, and oh, this is the draft of the original song. I'm gonna get this out of here. I'm gonna hide that and make that inactive. This is the click track. I don't really need click tracks anymore because I'm done with the tracking. So I can delete those completely. Got my master fader, and then my overhead, kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, cymbals. Here's my reverb. and then the trusty sine wave. If you didn't see the video called a simple hack, I think I called it tutorial hack for. Anyway, this right here is just in case in this video I need to pause. This helps me when I go back to edit the video to know where to chop it up. So anyway, if you don't know, I can't go into full explanation because it would be kind of confusing and it's way off topic. So check out that video. You'll see it's called Sine Wave Hack. Just look for that on my channel. All right, I'm gonna get this audio channel out the way. I don't know why I created that. Evidently I was going to do something with that and then abandon it. So that's it. Now we are ready to rock and roll. Got all the tracks that we need. So here we go. So remember, the first thing we want to do is a volume mix. And what I have to do for that is to make all these instruments active. Now, hopefully they play nice and hopefully they won't tax my computer too much and slow things down. Let's see, was this on? Yeah, this was on. Okay, so I'm going to have to make an adjustment to the volume because I realized just now that I had a limiter on and I didn't know that before. So what that means, for those that don't know, this boosts the sound. It gives the illusion that it boosts the sound. And I had that on for the demo, but I didn't mean to have it on just now. So I'm going to play this track and just try to make sure my volume, as far as what you're hearing, is maybe okay. Again, I can't tell because I can only hear what I can hear and I can't hear what you can hear until afterwards, but yeah. And one more pause for the cause to reset this video because I got the little bug in my system again. What it is and I don't know why, but for some reason when my computer gets taxed, and these plugins can take a lot of, computer energy, there'll be this kind of thing that happens. And when I hit play, you're going to hear the music, but you're going to hear the static on top of the music. And there we go. And it stopped. Okay. Now, something just happened that happens, I notice sometimes, where sometimes it just corrects itself. And then I can keep on going. In this case, I am going to keep on going until it messes up again. So I was going here in the setup to check my buffer size. This is, without going too deep, maybe I can go deeper in another video. This playback engine is how you control how taxing it is on your computer. When you take the hardware buffer size and the bigger the number, the less taxing it is on your computer. The smaller number, the more taxing. And the reason why you're doing this is not really for computer and how it's being taxed. This is delay compensation. What that means is when I'm recording these instruments and I'm playing them on a keyboard, there's a certain amount of time that it takes from the time I hit the note or the key with my finger to it triggering the sound, to the sound going into the system, being recorded, and then coming back out. When you have a higher number, there's more of a gap in between the time you hit it and when you hear it. You can hear the delay. But if you keep taking it down in number, it gets so short that after a while you can't hear it at all. The smaller the number, the more taxing it is on your computer. But you want to do this when you're recording, so that way you can record in proper time and not be recording to a delay. But when it comes to mixing, you can raise the number up because at that point, everything is recorded and you can ease up the workload on your computer because you don't need to delay compensate, or you don't need to compensate for the delay. So I want to make sure that was up here because sometimes if it's a low number, that'll be the other thing that slows down a computer and makes it act weird. So seems to be okay. If it starts making static again, then I'll just restart it and keep it going. So I want to take this volume up a little bit now. Okay. So at this point, again, simple mix, VPEC formula. So I should be done this mix in 30 minutes, to be honest. And if not, it'll be the perfectionist in me. I don't know. I'm not going to be done in 30 minutes, but it shouldn't take me more than an hour from here. And I want to rock and roll. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn everything down to 0, with the exception of my master fader. So I'm going to select all by hitting Shift and 1, if you didn't see that on the screen. And we'll pull this down, and then I want to take this, and I held Option. For those that want to know what shortcuts I'm using, I held Option and then click Option. Will take any fader or knob back to its original position. And I'm going to put that at -2. And then from here, my goal is to try to raise the instruments one at a time based on focus and build a volume mix. So here we go. I always like to, so I'm a pianist, and a lot of times the piano is the most important aspect of a lot of these songs, or at least when it comes to harmony and kind of guiding the song. So I try to treat that with a little bit more favoritism, but I have to be careful, because it's easy to have a mix where it sounds like the pianist out front just kind of running the pack, and that's not really what I'm going for here. I'm going for just a traditional band sound where everybody is kind of making room for each other and nobody's leading the pack, so to speak, as far as volume. But I'm still going to start with piano just to start somewhere. Now, one thing I like to do is go to the most climactic aspect of the song, and that's because when it comes down to volume, you pretty much are adjusting volume to whatever is the loudest, whatever section is the loudest. Because if you judge by a soft section, then you'll set all your volumes for soft settings, and then when it gets to get loud, it'll just be way over the bar. So you rather set it for the loudest part of the song, and then that way you're under the bar. So in this case, I'm gonna reach for this bridge, because this is where it gets a bit climactic. All right. So I usually put piano at just like a general place of like -5. I already feel like this is too loud. just in my own ears, it feels too loud. So I'm gonna mix softer, and then I'll just cut everything up after we finish. So let's go for there. That feels, I'm already hearing the other instruments in my ears. That's kind of what I'm judging on. So I think I'm gonna go here. Leave some room. I always like to do organ next, because the organ and the piano, are really playing together, and they share the same space, and they're kind of a married couple to me. Bass and drums are kind of a married couple, piano, organ are together. So I always like to put the organ at a supportive role with the piano, where you can hear it, but it's under the piano, supporting the piano. The organ is a much bigger instrument, especially when you open up all the drawbars. So it's easy for the organ to overpower the piano, and it's easy to think that if I just match them in volume like this, that they should be neck and neck. But it's not the case, because this pumps out more volume because of the way that the sound is created. With a piano, there's only one way to make the sound, and that's just playing the keys, and there's no different dimensions to the sound. organ can be very soft, or you can pull out all the drum bars and it fattens up the sound. So I always like to put this under the piano. So I'm going to put that. Now I'm just judging by ear. Sometimes I'll look at the numbers, but mostly ear first. And then I look at the numbers when I just need to make a small incremental. Like say I just want to go down that much. Just 21, I'll show you again, 21.4 to 21.8, which doesn't seem like a lot, but after a while your ear is able to hear very small differences in sound. And nothing is static. So I mean, you'll set something at a place, and then as time goes on, then you'll go back because it won't feel right, or you'll feel like you need to adjust based on new information, new information coming into mix, new sounds. Okay, that's the brightest part of the organ. Let me get that. So I'm gonna leave that about there for now. Then we're gonna go to bass. I try not to get over, obsessive, because after a while, if you get too over obsessed with one instrument or forgetting it perfect, then your ears start playing tricks on you. And after a while, you actually can't tell whether you're hearing something and it sounds good or bad. I'm telling you, it's a weird kind of thing. So you have to take breaks frequently by turning off the music, like how I'm doing now, and then coming back to it with fresh ears. Now you can already see this bass is loud just by itself, so I don't need this volume way up for it to be in the mix and supporting the piano and organ. I start loud, then I subtract. Okay. So I'm judging by the sound and kind of how it feels in my body too. Mainly like right now, especially with these small changes I'm making, this is how it feels in my body. After a while, you get to the point where you kind of know how it's going to translate into speakers, car speakers, and everything just from the very beginning. So I'm feeling that out. All right, next, strings. The first strings 1. I think I'm gonna take this up a little bit more too, just a hair. All right, I'm gonna go to the next strings too. Let me check something, because I did just change the sound. Let me make sure I didn't make these the exact same sound for both. If I did, I'm gonna have to select a different one for one. Transparent, warm, adagio, transparent strings, warm. I think I did, and I don't want to do that. That was the first one. Here's the second one. Yep. Okay, so I got to change this second one. The reason why I changed it from what I had before is because the video, when you listen to the video I did before this, I did a pretty decent job as far as the strings, but the sound after I finished, the vibrato on the sound was kind of annoying to me. So what I actually want to do with this second string sound is I want a higher pitch string, something that cuts through the warm. Sorry about that. I had to clear my throat. Something that cuts through the warm strings. And so when I when I actually, I explained it in the last video, the client, she wanted it a little bit more climactic. And so in this bridge part, so what I decided to do was to add a second string part. The best thing to do with this string part would be to bring it out more by letting it be a sound that's a little bit more aggressive. So maybe let's go here. Let's see the difference between bright and warm. Let's see if they contrast with each other. So this is warm, this is bright. I think we got a winner. Again, this is one of those things. Now, if you look at this list, look at all these sounds. Now, look at how I'm going down really fast. Look how fast I'm flying. But look at this over here. It looks like it's going nowhere. The reason why is because this section is filled with so many different sounds. Now, I don't want to spend all day, because that's what happens as a producer. And, sometimes you can spend all day looking for one sound, and you come across sounds that sound good. And again, the same thing happens where after a while, you can't tell whether things sound good or not good because you've just been listening to so many different sounds. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm going to use the bright strings over top of the warm strings and let it be. They sound good together. It was a nice contrast. So let's listen to that. These are the first strings. These are the second strings. Now, because she wanted this part a little bit more aggressive, I am going to turn these up more so that they're making more noise in the mix and pushing it, making it feel more climactic. So for right now, I think I'll deal with that. The only thing about this is that these strings, let me go back here. If you can hear, the strings attack late. So they're kind of like, the beat is boom, boom, boom. And they're kind of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're taking a while to develop. That's because of the type of sound they are. And the adagio aspect. So what I'm going to do is I took the reverb off. I should have explained that while I was doing it. This right here on the effects tab in the sound is a reverb unit. This gives that open, spacey sound. I'm going to take that off and see if it makes a difference. So it made a little bit of a difference, but it still sounds a little behind. Now, it actually may be okay. Once I put everything together, it may be okay. If it's not, then the thing that I'm going to do is take this off. Now, I usually do this with audio, but I could do it with MIDI too. I'm going to take all of these, and you see how they're right up against these lines. I'm going to highlight all of them, and I'm going to put this in slip mode, and that's so that these can slide around and not be stuck to a grid. And I'm just going to move them back like this. And I may even do this now and leave it. Let me hear how it sounds. I'm moving them back because then they hit before the beat, which means since they sound late, then moving them early will make them sound earlier and possibly right on time. Actually, I think I know what the real problem is. It may not even be that. I'm looking up here. These strings are super early. Let me see. Maybe I didn't quantize these. And see, again, this, if I didn't, this would be an example of the delay compensation deal. Because it looks like, see how these are way before the downbeat? I think I might have recorded these, and you see they're perfect. Like all of the ones that you see in front of the beat, they're all like perfectly in front of the beat, same time each bar. I think I may have recorded those without the delay compensation, so I was hearing it early and playing it that way. Let's see. All right, I didn't expect to run into this, but this is good because you get a chance to see all of the equation and the different things that happen during recording. It can be fun too. It can be, you learn a lot of things. So I'm going to quantize, I'm going to tighten up this and see if it'll pull over here to this line. And if it does, then I'm going to play the track and see if it sounds in time. Because it may not have been that these are late. These are right on time. It may have been that these are early, making these feel like they were late. And it shifted. Now the test. I actually need to cut on a click track or some kind of timing source so I can hear it in context. But let's just see what this sounds like. I think that's what it was. Yep. That's what it was. Actually, wait a minute. So they sound good and they sound in time. Now I gotta play them with the second strings and see if they work. Wow, this is when you can really tell how behind it is. You listen to it, and in fact, that's what I think. I think the reason why these were in front of the bar is probably because in the last video, I think I did what I was getting ready to do here. Here's the only way to tell. Let me take this off. And with these playing all early, all before the beat, let me see if I did that in the last session. It's been a while since I did the last session. See if I did that to compensate for what we're talking about here, to make it fall on the beat by pulling it forward and making it strike early because of the natural delay that's built into the sound. I should use this. I think that's what it is. If you listen to this part, da, 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 if you listen to it closely, especially because there's so many hits, it sounds better. Yeah, it sounds better early. Okay, so that meant I did it here, what I was trying to show you all here. So that means I should be able to do the same thing here, where I just drag these forward to match what you see up here. And then now all the strings should sound in time. Because remember, these two string tracks, I was using the same patch here. One was just called bright, and the other was called warm. So that means they're basically built the same way. It's just they have different type of articulations. So let's listen and see if now it sounds in time. And I'm going to use this part really because these hits. So let's start from here. Yep, that's what it is. By golly, I think we got it. So this is good that I ran into this because this is the reason why I want to do these, or why I'm doing these kind of vlogs, these long form videos where you just sit and listen to me ramble and fall asleep to the sound of my voice and watch every little thing, because these are the secrets of production. And yeah, usually you want everything to hit right on the beat. I don't know why this isn't on the beat. That should be. But And I'm okay with the organ being a little behind because that's want the organ to sound pretty natural. But I think what's going on here is this bass part isn't quantized for some reason. I thought I did this in the last one. Again, quantization is when you take everything you played and you make it line up perfectly, or the computer lines it up perfectly, or at least close to perfect, so that way it could be a tighter performance. And you see here, it's not. And I actually want that. It's kind of all over the place here. So this is what I'm going to do. For some reason, it looks like I only quantized some of the track and not all. Yeah, I heard it right there. It was late. All right, so let me just highlight this and let's quantize. I'm going to pretty much quantize perfectly 16th notes. And let me do that again so you can see it, just in case you've never seen quantizing. If you notice, all these are not right on the line. They're right after the line. I meant for them to be on the line. You see this one is like right there. It's just that I'm human, so I can't play them exactly perfectly. So when you look, if I just look at this section here, you're going to see all these shift and move to the closest line. Voila. And now they're perfect. So as you can see there, it's pretty tight. Now, there's a such thing as things being too tight. So there's sometimes when you don't want it perfectly. There's what I do is I'll kind of have in a track a combination of both things going on. Some things that are really tight that I really want tight to the beat and to the bar, and then some stuff that's loosey-goosey. And then I have some stuff like with the piano part. I don't know if I did it here. I think for ease, I think I kept it simple. But usually what I'll do is in one piano part, you'll see both. You'll see some parts where it's tight to the bar, and then you'll see, I guess I didn't really do, I think I kept it pretty much in a pocket here. I didn't do any rolls, where you just kind of, you just kind of go up the piano and play, if you're playing a chord where you roll the chord up instead of just putting your fingers all down at the same time. I don't think I did that because I wanted to keep it simple. Let's listen to this real quick. Listen to that. Okay, that's a good example. So this is the only place where I did like a free flowing kind of piano thing. And it was because it was at the very end. So if you notice, if you look at the piano part closely, all these notes, you see they're tight on the bar. And then all of a sudden, when you get here, you notice there's a little space right there. And you notice these are not tight to the bar. The reason why I did that, and it's real simple, it's common sense, but it's worthwhile because it's definitely a nifty little thing. I wanted to make this whole part really tight and, just in the pocket. So I did that. I quantized the entire part, made it tight. Then when I got here, listen to it in context and then I'll explain. So if you notice, that's the part of the song where it comes to an end and the timing overall stops. So here, I didn't want it to be rigid or else it would still sound like it was rigidly in time, although everything is slowing down. So I quantized the entire part and then I took from here on over and I dequantized it so that it was back to the way I played it naturally. and especially this. Let me show you what this would sound like if it's quantized. Let me first unsolo everything, and let me just solo the piano. So that's natural and normal without quantization. And let me show you what it would sound like if I quantized it. I'll quantize it rigidly to 16th notes like the rest of the track. Now listen to this. It's not going to sound like it's flowing and rolling up. It's going to sound like dee 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 dee. Here we go. Now that doesn't sound bad, but if you listen closely, and the reason why I say dee 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 dee, because if you listen closely, it sounds like I'm still trying to do a run in time. And it's because it's quantized as 16th notes. So what you hear is, you hear 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Now that's not how I wanted to sound. I wanted to sound like it's just freely flowing. So this, I'm going to play A and B. First I'll play it quantized, then I'll take the quantization off and you'll see. It's rigid and here's off. See, it's just beep, 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 beep. It's just, kind of flowing in the way that I was flowing naturally. Okay, so we have that. And now it's time to, okay, we have everything up except for the strings. Except for the chimes. As far as our melodic and harmonic instruments. And then on this side, so here's a little point. I put my master fader in the middle, as you all can see. Those that are engineers probably noticed that from the beginning. I don't notice it because that's the way I'm used to mixing. Most of you all know that most mixing boards looks like this, where the master fader is at the end. It's okay mixing that way, because you see everything go from left to right, and here's where it dumps out. I like to mix like this because I use my master fader as the halfway point between my melodic and harmonic instruments, and on the other side, my percussion instruments. That's just how I like to mix. I like to put all my percussion on this side and all my melodic instruments on this side. The only thing I'll have on this side that can fit over here sometimes is percussion, like a percussion track, like a drum, like a little percussion loop, or if I have congas and some other sound effects, I'll have it on this side toward the master fader. Still close enough here, but I do that because sometimes I just like drums on the right side, especially if a track has a lot of percussion, then I'll kind of separate them. But yeah, I like to mix that way just because this is my splitting point. So now I have chimes. That's pretty good for right now. Again, nothing is finalized. This is just, and you see how long I'm taking to do this. It's not just because I'm long-winded. You see how long I'm taking just to get a volume mix. I swear I'm so grateful that the teachers in Sheffield really taught us the value of this, because this saves a lot of time. When you spend this too much time doing this, then the rest of your mixing, you don't spend a lot of time because you've already gotten things sounding pretty good without effects. It really is an interesting thing. But it could be really tempting just going to grab effects. So I'm glad that they took the time to stress this to us. So from here, I got chimes and everything. I got all my melodic and harmonic instruments. Now it's time to add drums. When it comes to drums, I always like to start off with the kick because it's the foundation. Sorry about that. I have to ungroup my drums. I have them all in a group A so that when I pull one, if I mess with one thing, it mess with them all. So I didn't want that. Take it out of the group, and then I just want kick. Kick is the foundation, so I always use this as the next thing to match as far as volume. And I always try to blend it in the mix with all the instruments, but especially the bass. I'm especially listening to its relationship with the bass, because you want the bass and the kick. Most of the time you want them as one. Especially in this kind of music, you want them married to each other and sounding like one instrument. So to show you what I mean, let me solo the bass and solo the kick. Oh, got a little problem there. Wait a minute. I knew I heard something. You hear all those bass notes blending into each other. That's a sustain issue. It was right here in this next part. Yeah, don't want that. Real easy fix. From here to here, there's a sustain issue. Sometimes the way this happens is like, if I record it up until this place and say I messed up, and I said, okay, I want to record it over, and I start from here, but I didn't realize that when I played these notes, I was using my foot to play the sustain pedal, and it leaked over into this first note here. And when I go back to record it, that sustain will still be there from this note, and it'll leak over. And you don't always hear it when you record until like a time like this. You don't always hear it because it doesn't show itself a lot of times until you play it back. Real simple fix. All I have to do is go here into my controllers, go to sustain. Yep, there it is. This shows when it's up high like this, that means the pedal is being pressed down. And when it's low, that means it's being released. So I was pressing it down on this last note, and it carried over and made all these notes just blur into each other. Now, let me see, what do I want? Let me first move this over. Let me change my mode to grid so that this can snap right to the bar. Now let me play it and see if that fixed it. And if not, then I'll take it off all the way. Yeah, so I didn't really play that there. It sustained from the last part of the recording. Real easy fix if you ever, if this, wow, my mouse keeps jumping. I don't know why it keeps doing. Okay, real easy fix, musicians and producers, if that ever happens to you. When you pick up and you just record a part like this, and you want to make sure that there's no sustain commands that you aren't aware of, just like literally tap the sustain pedal with your foot a couple times while you're playing your first note. Just real fast, tap, tap, tap. And that'll kind of juggle it so that way if there is a sustain note, you'll make it release. So I'll do that a lot of times too. In this case, it carried all the way over, and I don't want any of this to be sustained. What I really want is just for these notes to connect. So I'm gonna play it now that I took the sustain off. That's how I really want it. With one exception, a little bit more legato. Yeah. So instead of boom, but see, I wanted the sustain here. That I did want. I do want the sustain there. So it takes this little note and holds it until I get here. Oh, not like that. Okay, that's because the sustain pedal is acting weird in that place. So I'm going to do it another way to make it really easy. I'm going to just drag the note out and just make it long as I want it. And same way here. I don't want any space in between these notes. I want it to blend all the way in, even all the way to that last note. And I don't want this to cut off. I could either make it go halfway, boop, boop, boop up, like that. That's not what I want. I really just want it to connect. That's it. Just wanted to sustain all the way through. Ooh. Got the little harmony thing happening there. I have too much fun sometimes. So now that's better. Okay. And actually, it looks like that was the only place that happened, I believe. All right. So again, I'm supposed to be matching the thump of this kick with the meat of this bass. I feel like that's a pretty good place there. Sometimes I like the kick to have a little bit more presence just because it's the driving thump. And it also pushes, if you do it right, it pushes the bass note that's on top of the place where the kick hits. It accents it and pushes it. So for right now, I'm not going to be obsessive. That's going to be there. Sorry if you can hear my family in the other room. They're pretty audible. All right, here we go. Feels pretty good. Next, enter snare. Gonna back it up because I want that climactic part. If you notice, that has some bleed from the other instruments. Little ride cymbal definitely in there. I love this program. It makes it so realistic to how it really sounds. I find I always have to give my snare a little bit more favoritism so it can cut through. So I think about there is fine. Let's go hi-hat. And I'll start with everything loud and then backtrack from there. That was what I was looking for. Let me grab that part. The open hi-hat part is what I'm really judging the most climactic part on, because it's the part where it's opened up and it's sizzling and it's the loudest. If I can get that right, then the other soft parts will fall right in the pocket where they need to be. Let's see where those are. There we go. Nailed them. All right, here's an example of reading this language. So to many people, sorry about this mouse jumping thing. What it is my finger. I have a magic mouse where when you just the slightest touch, the slightest like brushing across of your finger, picks it up. And even when I'm not touching it, it senses the heat probably from my hand. Okay, this is one example of reading this as language. Now, I knew that was that, but I just wanted to make sure. And the main reason is because, real easy, these are longer words than these short words. So I could tell these are t, 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 and these are tss, tss, tss. You can just see it's longer. It's literally like reading words. So I want to hear this. And I want to loop that for a second because I want to get the volume based off of those open hits. Notice if I turn it all the way down, you still hear it because it's in the other one. So that's why I need to really be cautious, because when you have bleed, if it's already coming through another microphone really loud, then you don't want the source microphone to overpower that, or the other way around. You want more of the source. In this case, I like to have more bleed and source to back it up, just because to me it just feels a bit more natural. So I don't want it this loud. It's too loud. And I love the sizzle. Remember, less is more. That's about good right there. Remember, less is more. So sometimes I'll start loud and then bring it down. Sometimes I'll start soft. But I always, even when I find the right spot, I'll find the right spot and then I'll take note of that, but then I'll move it back up and then come back down again, or move it down and come back up. And this is my way of really double and triple checking my ear to make sure my ear is not fatigued and I'm still hearing a difference in sound. Because I promise you, after even 30 minutes of listening to the same sound, your ears just start to, get dull, where you can't, they go numb, so to speak. So that's one good thing about this video, because I keep having to stop and talk. And so it's allowing my ears to have short breaks, which is good. We can't talk enough about that. So that feels good for right now. Let's go to toms. Now, if you notice, one other thing I want to mention too, and this is just because now I'm so used to doing this. When you first start off as a beginner, most beginners mix this way, myself included, where you solo a sound and then you move it around, find the right place, then you go listen to the next sound, and then you try to find a place, and then you listen to the next sound. The problem with that is you're mixing in a vacuum. Mixing is really blending sounds. So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, if you're advanced and you already know this, it's hard at first, because sometimes, like right now, even for some people, while I was adjusting that hi-hat, you may have not even heard a difference when I was going here versus here. You may have not actually heard a difference. And I'm so used to it, I didn't think about it. That's why I'm slowing down to make sure I mention it. You want to train your ear to hear sounds while other sounds are going on, because that ultimately is how you're mixing. If you mix and you, like right now, let's see what this is at. Well, I can just undo it. It's at negative 22.6. I could do this and say, oh, that's too quiet. That sound by itself, it sounds too quiet. Like maybe there. That feels more present, right? Yes, it does feel more present. The problem, though, that's in isolation. When I cut everything else in, that's too loud for me now. That sizzle is way too much for me now. So I wouldn't know that, though, if I was just mixing like this and, soloing it. Everything is too soft soloed. Everything needs to come up in volume. But that's not mixing. Mixing is just that. You're combining sounds. So let me undo that. And yeah, that's why I'm mixing this way. So like even when I mix these toms, for many people, you can't even hear, especially when I put the melodic instruments there. Some of y'all can't hear the thump. I still can, and you can too if you keep training yourself, keep listening and finding the sweet spot of sounds. And then, so that felt a little too loud for me. Again, I'm not the best mixing engineer, but I realize especially in these times when people consume music through their MP3 players or YouTube, you really don't have to have the best mixes. They just need to be what I like to call listenable. You have to make it where you don't have certain sounds that are blurting out and really loud and dominating others. You don't want to have a muddy mix where everything sounds like this and muffled, and that's an easy fix for that kind of stuff. And you just want an overall like nice balance if you can't afford to outsource your mixing. For these kind of tracks, I can't afford to outsource the mixing. It doesn't make sense. It makes more sense because of what I charge for these kind of mixes. I mean, these kind of songs, to just do it all in the box. But if it was a bigger, more important project for some kind of grand, stage, then I would recommend something different. So yeah, listenable, minimalistic mixes, as long as they're clear, not muddy, and sounds aren't fighting with each other and nothing is loud and obtrusive, you'll find, that your audience is happy a lot of times. All right, so next, after toms, I'm going to go for overheads. And the reason why I'm going to go for overheads is because cymbals, when it comes to cymbals, overheads is a bit of everything. You hear here. It's a bit of everything. But if you notice, in that everything, the loudest is the cymbals. So I kind of use overheads, and most engineers do. Overheads are put overhead of the drum. And so that means they usually pick up cymbals the most. So I kind of use them for like cymbal mixes. And then if I want to add a bit more direct presence from the cymbal, then I'll add the cymbal track. Right now I'm just going to start with the overheads and then go from there. Now this is when this is a bit different than reality, because in reality you wouldn't have overhead mics and then other mics directly for the cymbal. This is when there's a little bit, stretching reality. This program allows you to get the direct sound from every drum because it's all digitally done. So there might be times in your song where you don't want the overheads, where you get like the wash of the cymbals in the room. You just want it as a direct sound, same way like you have a direct microphone on a hi-hat or direct microphone on a snare. And that's why they give you that option. But in real life, you don't have overhead cymbals and then other, microphones that are directly on cymbals, because they serve the same purpose. So that's why I always like to start with the overheads. And then if I want a little bit more presence, which most of the time I don't, because cymbals can get out of control fast. That was one of the problems with my earlier mixes. The cymbals were too loud because I didn't realize, that you want to take it easy on cymbals, so they were kind of too loud. Think about there. They don't sound too intrusive, but they're present. And see, with that, now I don't really need these cymbals, but sometimes I'll still do a little bit of, behind it, just to give it a little body. So now this I usually do in isolation, because for some reason, just hearing this by itself, I don't know why, I can judge it better. And then I'll still listen to it all together with the rest of the music. And usually, I'm in a good ballpark. So let's first listen by itself. And it's just because I only want to touch. That's probably why I do better listening like this. I really just want that much. And you can barely hear that. But combined with the other cymbals, to me, I'm not looking for it to be heard so much as just felt as like a push behind this sound. And even then, I still feels a little too loud. So watch how small of an increment that I take this down. Like literally, let me back that up so I can do it by feel. Like literally that much. So 30.2 to 30, 1 minus 31.8. Less is more. And even then, I still feel it's too loud. See, again, this is one of those context things. When I put everything together, it made me feel differently. I'm going to go here. Then I'm going to see if these are, I just want these down. I think it might be here. I want less presence. Cymbals really easily get out of control. So I think I'm going to just be happy with that. And then, let's see. Now I'm just listening to the whole mix, and now just, giving one last final listen. Now you see how much time, I don't even know what time I started on volume, but you can see it's been a long time just on volume. This is how important it is. But you'll see the rest of the mix is going to go super fast because of this. Another one of those times where the hi-hat is being reinforced through the overheads and a few other mics, so I don't need as much here. Still feel like these cymbals are loud. I like my cymbal to crack, to really crack and pop. Okay. So, again, I could be even more picky, but I've learned over the years that, and this the last, another little thing I'll add onto it. There's a lot of times when you listen to a mix for so long, it'll sound good, but to your ear, because now you're starting to hear every little thing, you can start over mixing. There's been a lot of times when I've listened to a mix like this, and I was thinking to myself, like, I feel pretty good about it, but I know there could be 20 more tweaks. And I'll listen to it in the car, which is, a good place to reference, especially an enclosed car with good speakers. And it'll sound great. I mean, it'll sound, especially if I take a break from it and then go play it in the car, like when my ears have been rested, I'll go like, wow. Now, it'll show me that these little nuance things that I've been doing here and the meticulous aspect of it really make a difference. It also will show that those places where like these cymbals were sounded overbearing, my ear was just so sensitive at that point that I could hear such small nuances and changes that they sounded like great nuances and changes, when really by the time I go to the car, they're not that big of a drastic thing. So that's why you want to give yourself breaks, and you don't want to be over obsessive compulsive. Okay, so from here, I think I'm going to go ahead for the sake of this track and do panning second. Like I said, usually I'll do a panning sometimes last even. And there's only really one reason. And that's because when I EQ and when I compress, I kind of don't want to hear the sound off balance, because it might make me judge the sound in a weird way. So if I'm trying to say with I don't know, there's nothing in here that I would throw hardcore in one direction or the other. Let's just say the hi-hat. That would be one. If the hi-hat I did this with, so I can make it sound like it was on a drummer's left side, if the drummer was facing us, then I might EQ that and try to get out the lows or try to tighten it up. But because I'm hearing it on the right side of my ears, it just might make me judge it in a weird way. So I'm going to save usually panning for last. Today I can do it now for the sake of this recording. I can do it in order. VPEC. Here we go. Panning. So I'm just going to pan just this one part. And my goal with this, see, usually I use panning to separate instruments and let them play their own space. Pretty much everything here is going to be up the middle. Everything is going to be kind of central. And that's just because piano, like, this isn't a situation where I'm trying to make it sound like a band on a stage where you hear piano just coming from the left if he or she is to the left and the bass player just from the right. That's more so when you're trying to make a live sounding recording. This is a live sounding recording, but it's supposed to be like a studio recording, so it's supposed to be pretty much where everything is in stereo. So I'm not going to go hardcore with that, but I am going to just take this hi-hat and make it feel like the drummer is playing where he or she is central, but where, like a regular drummer, the hi-hat is, if they're right-handed, the hi-hat is toward their left, our right, if we're looking at them on a stage. So I'm going to take this hi-hat and okay, I got my earphones on backwards. I was like, why did they go the other way? So my earphones on backwards. You can't tell this, but when I just did that, instead of it going to my right ear, it went to my left. But that's because my the cord on my, let me turn it around. So I just turned my headphones around. What happens is the cord that's connected to it crosses my body when I put the right ear on. So I usually wear them backwards, but I need it right now. So I want this to go kind of like here, just a little, right? I'm not going to go hardcore. I just want to show you. I just want to put panning into application. So if you notice, if you're listening to this through your headphones or dual speakers, then you'll notice that hi-hat is now a little bit on your right. And that's to give it some dimension, to make it feel like it's spread out a little bit. Just slightly, ever so slightly. Less is more. Okay, if I had other sounds, just to tell you the application, say like I had a lead, say I had two lead sounds, two little synth leads, and say those synth leads were doing different parts. Well, I might have one pan slightly to the left and one slightly to the right, so that way you just heard these interesting parts, in contrast of each other, going in different directions in different places. If they're together, you might not be able to tell as much because they're on top of each other. But if they're spread out a little bit, then you can literally hear the difference in the dimension in the sound, and it gives you a bigger sound and mix. So those are some other places. Or if I had two guitars, maybe I had two, say, acoustic guitar parts. Maybe one was a rhythmic part that was in first position, and one was a rhythmic part that had a little bit of counter rhythm in second position as far as the way the chords were played. Then I might separate them in the stereo field so it sounds like a guitar player on one side and a guitar player on the other side, just kind of playing together against each other. For right now, this is going to be all there is for panning. Now we go to EQ. And my EQ I put here at the top of the chain. These are the sounds, so those are going to be at the top but at the top of the effects chain. Here's my EQ across the board. All right, so let's get started. And all I'm going to do is just mix from left to right. I'm going to start with EQ on the Less is more. Again, don't just start going and grabbing knobs. Really listen to a sound and see if it needs anything first. If it doesn't, then don't touch it. You don't have to tweak everything. Let me see in context. I'll say I want it a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to give it a small boost up here in what we call the intelligibility range. And that's just where the voice, where you hear the brightest aspect of a voice or instrument come out. I'm literally just going to give it a 0.5 boost. Less is more. And I'm doing that because on the master fader, I always do an overall boost to the higher, to this high mid range where it just sounds clearer. Intelligibility range is what they call it. And just a little boost there makes everything sound clearer. So in the end, I usually boost it up at least a dB across this section. So I'm going to keep this light so that way I'm not doing too much on the piano and then adding even more. It's like adding sugar on top of sugar. Other than that, to be honest, I feel pretty good about the sound. I really don't feel like anything else is needed. Just trying to make it listenable. Make it better than just a flat mix. Sometimes here in the 500 range, I'll do this. I'm just going to pull it ever so slightly down. This is usually where the mud is for most instruments, 3 to 500, like right about here. And so if you dip this down, then now this is one of those addition by subtraction moments. Because if I left this alone and just dip this down, it would make it seem like I raised this up. It would be clearer, but it's because I removed some of the murky and muddy aspect out of the equation. For most sounds, I'll do just a negative, negative 0.5. I'll just bring it down just a little bit, just to clean it up a little bit, as a safety precaution. That's it for that. I'm not going to go any farther with that piano. Even though it may be able to use more, maybe I'll give it a little bump here in the crispy top part of it. 3.3. That's it. Keep it going. Organ. Now, there's one part about this organ that's bothering me a little bit, and that's some of the range is lower than I want it to be. It's going to be a real simple fix for that. Like there. Is something about that lower range, and you might not be able to hear it, but from a musician perspective, it is bothering me a little bit. So real easy fix, because I'm gonna keep it simple. Minimalistic mixing. Here we go. All I'm gonna do is just take out some of that range. I'm not gonna replay the part, not gonna go crazy with it. So let me first find it. I'm gonna loop this part. Because this is one instance where I'm hearing it. And what it is where I'm playing the chords on the keyboard it's starting to get in the darker part of the range for the organ. And I had to do that because it fit the song and it was technically like the correct notes to play in the correct range. But there's a little bit of murkiness there. So I'm going to loop this, especially there. Yeah. Especially on that. Okay. So I'm going to do here. First, I'm going to find that range by boosting it. It's right here. Listen to that right here. Yep, all that. That's murky. So you boost in order to hear, and then you drag it down and cut. You can either drag it straight down if you're using this plugin. This is a Waves Renaissance EQ plugin. You can either drag it straight down, or you can go down here to gain and just drag this up and down. That way you don't make a mistake and go right or left with this. You can find that place and then just do this. So let me let you hear how it sounds as I'm doing that. Murky, muddy. Okay. Now let's take that murky muddy out. Listen to that. And I'm going to A-B it. Watch this. Big difference. Alright, so watch this. And especially this part. Especially that. Especially that. It's just because of the way the chords are played. So this is after. This is oh, sorry, I gotta back it up twice. This is before. Whole different thing. Before, after. Before, after. Big difference. And it's especially gonna come into play when I do this. That's after. Here's before. Mud. All right. So that. Wait a minute. I don't think I'm done there. Wait a minute. The other thing about the organ is that the place where I wanted to come out is around here. In this 2K range, right above this 2K. Yeah. That's where the organ, one of the places where the organ kind of speaks. I just want that much. 1 dB. You could barely even see it. Less is more. Rather undermix than overmix. Now I'm going to listen to that and the piano together. Only other thing I'm going to do with this organ is I'm going to take this, which is a high pass filter. High pass means just that. It's allowing the highs to pass and it's dropping off the lows. And I'm going to use that to clean up the bottom a little bit more. Because I don't really need a lot of this low information. My bass is down there, my kick, the piano, the lower part of the piano. So it sounds a little bit thinner, but it's fine. I'm okay with it. Because I don't need as much as that as I need, this section. The upper. Then, like I said, let me see. Now this, I'm not going to dip the 500. Because this right here, I actually like this warmness right there. In fact, I'm going to boost that. Since I took away the lows, I'm going to boost that. So you hear more meatiness in the middle. Let me get a significant boost. Like 1.5. Maybe even a little bit more. 1.7. Don't forget to play the whole mix. I'm telling you, this is the place, even more than volume and panning. This is honestly where you can get caught up in this kind of listening, isolated, because you're trying to dial in, but you can do all of this work and then play with everything else and it sound horrible, like where you made choices based on it just being a song that was only the organ, and you learn fast. So always try to reference everything at least every 2 or 3 minutes. Next, the bass. And I'm going to move a bit faster from here. I want 800 to 1,000 hertz. That's the nasally kind of speaking aspect of the bass. Make that 1.5 and narrow. This Q tells how wide of a range to affect. I want that a bit smaller. And then bass. I'm gonna see if I can use more bass in here without it getting out of control. So I went about there. I want that bass. I'm not gonna go crazy. It's another one of those places you can easily go overboard. Let me boost it again. So I want that. Tighten it up. Anywhere between like 50 and 100 is like bass and drum meat range as far as the thickness. I think I'm gonna leave that at that, you know. Okay. That might be a little bit much, to be honest, though. I'm gonna be on the safe side. So it was at 4.0. This is when I do things by numbers, by math. It felt pretty good at 4.0, but a little bit much. So just by pure math, I'm just gonna go down at 1 decibel to 3, and then feel it. Maybe 3.5. Want a little bit more meat. And then maybe I'm gonna open up the Q a little bit, maybe, so it can affect a little bit more of a wider range. I like that. Now, there's a lot more I can do on bass. I mean, I can run it through amp simulators and everything. And I used to regularly. The ones that I used before I don't have anymore. So I'm not going to run them through there. I'm just going to try to craft it just by EQ and compression. Now, sometimes this is where I'll use compression first, sometimes in a bass chain, because basses can be wildly out of control. You can have a sound all the way down here at its softest pluck, and then all the way up here at its hardest pluck, and that's a big dynamic range. So sometimes I'll compress the bass first before I EQ it, just to get it under control first. This is not as wild of a bass line, so I'm going to save compression for next. All right, let's keep it moving. Strings, EQ. So, let's see. I want to go to the bridge. So these are meant to feel warm, so I guess a little bit of boost here to give them just a tad of more brightness. Roll off the bottom because I don't need anything low on strings. I don't need any low information. And I don't want to take this 500 decibels out in any way. And it's only because these strings are supposed to sound warm. And that middle nasally quality is here. So I don't want to do that. And I don't want to brighten them up too much because they're supposed to be warm. And the other sound is supposed to be a little bit more contrast. All right, on to the next one. Now these are meant to be brighter. Sometimes even if it's not really much information down here, I still make it a habit to roll off because you're tidying up your mix. You know, you're just kind of being clean and just just being real clean about it. Sometimes there might be a little bit down there you're not familiar with, so why not? And if it's nothing down there, then I mean you didn't lose anything. But if it is, then you cleaned it up a bit. It's like it's a little sidebar. It's like the Pascal's wager of mixing, for those that are familiar. All right, so let's see. Now this is where I'm going to need compression. If you notice, if you listen to the sound, it starts off softly, then it gets loud, and that's going to be one place where I'm going to need that loudness not to get so loud, and compression is going to help. So I think I'm just going to do the same. Nah, see, I'm already hearing it too bright. Already hearing it too bright. It does need a little bit of brightness on it, but I'm already hearing that 5 dB increase is too bright. Now here's one thing that balances it out. When you raise that up, you can't see it, but it's actually making a small arch. But if you do if you raise the top high pass, not high pass, but your very top high EQ range. Did my mouse just die on me? It did say my batteries were low. I don't think they were that low though. Oh no, they're still there. Okay. When you raise this up, I'm gonna have to show with another EQ what happens. So if you were to raise this up and make an arch here, then that's that. But when you raise this, it's going to lower. See that? It lowers the band right behind it. So because of that, I raised this up a little bit, but again, I'm trying to make sure this is not too, see, that's too overpowering for me. So I'll balance it out by taking this up, and then I'm getting more shine on top, but it's pulling down some of this range. Now the other thing, I wanted it to stand out some because it's driving the climactic aspect of that part, which is really what I was going for in recording for the client. All right, it's feeling good. It's feeling good to me. All right, now bells. Here's one of those places where honestly, maybe a little bit of shine on top, but other than that, I don't really hear anything. It's fine where it is. Just a little bit of shine. Now, I'm mixing in a vacuum. I'm listening to the sound close. But the other thing is, believe it or not, and this will happen as an engineer too, as you grow, I'm still hearing the rest of the music in my head, like all the elements, where it is as far as volume, what the EQ sounds like on it so far. Like I'm still hearing that, and I'm making this decision based off of like a past memory of the sound that's still real clear in my ears. So I want this to be brighter, but I'm hearing how bright it'll be in the midst of the other instruments. And I think I feel good with that. Let's see if it works. Yep. There's just a little bit more like shiny polish on the top that's making it like it's a sheen. It really is like a sheen on the top. Like a sheen, an oil sheen. Taking it back to the 80s and 90s. So I feel good with that. Again, I don't want to be obsessive. Don't be obsessive. Try not, because you'll get frustrated. You'll mix, and then, like I said, after a while, you'll have so much sugar and salt everywhere that like you just can't get it back to normal. Now the better thing about this than cooking is that, you know, cooking you gotta throw away the whole dish. Here you don't have to throw it away, but you will just reset like a lot of the plugins and start over. So be minimalistic and you won't have to do that. Now we're going to drums, and I always start with the kick. Okay, so this kick has bleed in it from the other instruments, so I have to know that whatever I do to this kick is going to affect those other instruments' range too. First thing, honestly, is I'm going to roll off the top frequencies because I don't need any of that high pitch information. None of it. The only thing I want is about here, and that's because of the slap of the beater of the kick. And I want to boost this for the point on the kick in order to push through, but not too loud or it sounds cheesy. Let's go. Let's go 1.5, and I'll make the Q small. Real tight and small. Okay. The next thing about a kick is that a lot of this mid-range is not needed. We just really need to thump. So I can really take a lot of this out here. Let me do this. I'm gonna over-exaggerate first and then make it more realistic. So, say about there. Okay. Now, in the range of a kick, if you want to find the meat of the kick, it's usually around like 50 to 60 range, depending on the type of kick, but most of the time it's here. If you notice down here is where I'm seeing the number. 50. Yeah. It's that meat. Now again, I gotta stop listening to this by itself. Feels good, and I just need to take the volume down. It's a little bit too messed up. Okay. Feel good with that. Now here's where it's always a huge difference as far as EQ, because this sounds a lot different than where this kick started. I wonder if I do this, if it'll let me go back. Hopefully it will. Do factory default so you can hear the difference in the flat EQ. And then the one I just did. Back again. It's boxy, kind of papery sounding. This is tighter, and I'm actually gonna take a little bit more top end off. There we go. Feel pretty good. Definitely got to get right to compression with this though, and sometimes I would do it right back to back, where before I go to the next EQ I go ahead and compress, because like right now I like the way the sounds as far as what I'm bringing out in it, but it's definitely out of control. and that I'm like fiending for getting this compressor on there to tame it. But we're gonna do it in the stages. Now in the future, you'll see me jump back and forth. But for right now, since the first time, I'm just gonna keep going with EQing. Okay, with the snare, of course, you want the top pop aspect of the snare to come out. So I'm just gonna do like 3, real light. I'm gonna still boost this in the end on the master fader. The other thing about this snare is I like it to have a bit more body, and so I kind of boosted a little bit above 125. I'll show you what it sounds like, really exaggerated. So that's the meat, the real thickness of the snare, and I like that in this snare because it gives it more weight. So I honestly think I'm gonna do a pretty decent boost, like that much. 4.8. Tighten up the Q a little. Let me see. I don't want to do this. Be about there. Bring it down just a little bit. Be a little bit more generous. Yeah, I like that. I don't know if you. Let me see. I don't know if you can hear that, but it just adds a little bit of bottom weight onto it, so it holds its own a little bit better to me. Yeah. I remember the days I couldn't hear that, and if you can't hear it, I'm sorry. But it's a little bit more presence down there on that. All right. Hi-hat, a lot of times I'll leave the hi-hat alone. I don't want to make everything too crispy in this area, so I don't want to raise it up. I could make it have a little bit more shine on the top. I'll do that. Maybe I'll just do like 3 decibels of shine. Show you this is what it sounds like, exaggerated. I don't want it like that. I honestly think I'm gonna do a decibel. Well, yeah, I think I might just do a decibel on this. A little bit too shiny. Let's do 0.8. All right. Next up, toms. Now, usually toms are separated all on different tracks. High toms on one track, mid toms, low toms. It's for me with this type of project is extra. So I just group them all together and just EQ them all together, even though you usually would handle them one at a time. But again, I'm a minimalistic mixer. MME, minimalistic mixing engineer. Here we go. I need to find a place where I know a place, y'all. I need to find a place where those toms just keep ringing. It looks like one coming up. Yeah, that was 2 hits. I need like one of those build-up measures where it's like boom, 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 boom. Thought I had one where it was longer. See if this works. That works. Okay. Now, one of the biggest things, and I'm going to have to do this first because it's going to bother me if I don't. One of the biggest things about toms is they have a ring in them that lasts and sometimes muddies up a mix. Let me see if I can play it. Let me try here. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I don't know if you can hear how long that took to decay. The ooh. But I'll tell you, first I'm going to do it. Well, I could just do it one way. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to tell you when my ear stops hearing it. So now, and really a little bit later than that. Look how long that is. That's a long time. From here to there. Keep your eye, maybe look at this to see like when you're close. Think about this spot and then listen again. Here. Yep. That's a long time for that to decay, but as it should, as a tom. But what happens sometimes, now this is another one of those cleaning up your mix things, like not where it's always as audible, but it definitely makes a difference when you keep adding up these tidying up, neatly cleaning kind of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a gate. And what does a gate do in real life? It keeps certain things out or keeps something in. In this case, we're going to use a gate to close at a certain point and close on that sound so that sound is gone. And the reason why is because I'm going to solo it. I'll do this. That long decaying sound will clash with other sounds, and one in particular is the bass. So I want to play it and you can hear it in context. Now you might not hear it as audibly, but what happens is once I clean this up with the gate, where the gate closes early and stops that sound from continuing, you're just going to notice a clarity about the mix, about your mix or about this mix. You're just going to notice a little bit more clarity where it just sounds a little bit more crisp, and that's because you don't have this woo continuing on. See, and that doesn't seem like much because it's not much, but watch this. If I take, I'm going to do this before I EQ it because I want to control the sound a little bit more. If I take my gate, where are we? Here we go, C1 gate. This is from the Waves collection again. Now this is gonna show what we heard. I told you I heard the sound all the way up to about here. You're gonna see the machine still more than likely register there too. If not, and it's gone before here, that means I have a bionic ear. Because I could still hear it, and hopefully the machine will still show it like down here somewhere. But anyway, here we go. Look at that. That's still ringing. Let me see. Watch this. I'm going to take this bass out of the equation so we can really hear this. Watch this. Now, I'm going to let it play. And as long as you see this blue that's still here and still ringing and slowly coming down, that means the sound is still going. Look at that. That's crazy. And that lasted all the way up to the next hits. It's long. As you see, my ear couldn't hear that much, but the machine could still register it. What that means is I'm getting ready to make it where you hear it ring and then it'll cut out a lot sooner using this machine. This machine is cleaning up all of that extra hum that even though you can't audibly hear it, you'll be able to feel a difference. When you do multiple instruments like this that need it, you feel a big difference. It feels just more clear, and understandably so. You don't have these low happening hums. So now let me show you how to use this. So first thing I have to do is figure out to myself, when do I want the sound to actually stop? Now, I'm going to do this in the vacuum by itself, and then I'm also play it with all the other instruments. And I'm going to say now when I just feel like it needs to stop, so that way it can make room for the rest of the instruments and not keep going on. So here, right there, I want it to stop there. Boom, right there. Now I'm going to put a marker there so we can make note of that. This up here, that's our marker. So what I'm trying to do is take note of on this meter where it is when we hit here, because that's when I'm gonna use these arrows to work my magic. Now, so it's about here at that place. So I'm gonna drag this up, and what this is I can separate these. This is the, let me move this out so you can see more. See that? This is what we call a knee. And this knee, because it looks just like a human knee or animal knee, is basically saying it's allowing the sound to go, and it's attenuating, or no, it's just decreasing in volume. And then here, shut off or quiet down severely, you know. So now if I do this, so yeah, what it's doing is as soon as it hits this place, it's quieting down a whole lot. Now I can make this, let's see, what is it? It's the, what's the floor? Yeah. I can make this be softer so that way it doesn't just shut straight off. But I kind of want, if anything, I want like this. I want it to shut off, and I'm okay with a little bit of natural sound way in the background dying out, but I want it mostly to go down in volume and then go out from there. And that was me messing with the floor, like when it stopped just decreasing. So if you notice here, watch this line. Drop. And that's when the sound literally dropped that much. Gone. Now, see, and now you don't still hear or feel that hum all the way up into these next beats. And it handles that way every time. As soon as it gets here, then it drops down. A lot of times you'll have to do this with toms, because again, those low toms especially, they ring. See that? But now it's cleaner. Now I just want to do a little bit of EQ on top of that. Let me go back to where it was. Yeah, that's what I want. I want that one. Okay. Now, another way of helping to clean up the bottom, I already did a gate where it significantly, attenuated the sound. Now I want to take it a step farther by rolling off a lot of that low rumble. Watch this. Now I'm gonna exaggerate it first so you can hear how it's gonna take it off. That's gone. I don't want it that hardcore. So they just want it about there. Just ever so slightly. Now it still sounds loud right now, but that's because it's in isolation. Listen to it together. You don't hear it at all. But again, your mix feels cleaner. And when you keep adding these up on top of each other, like if I had a bigger mix and I had to keep doing this, the exponential effect, the aspect that I keep doing it on multiple instruments makes a big difference over time. All right, so that's that. And then cymbals, I usually don't mess with because there's just no reason sometimes. So everything is EQ now. And then last we're gonna hit compression, and then we're done. I knew this was going to take more than a half an hour, but that was because we also ran into a bunch of other variables. Let's listen to the end of the verse going into the bridge. All right. So I'm sorry if that was loud in your ears, especially with everything coming together. I feel like it might be a bit loud, but hopefully it's not, because I would hate for it to be so bad that it makes the video unusable, but I'm going to trust that it's not. So that's it for that. And then we just have compression, a few things on the master fader, and we're out of here. So I'm going to move pretty fast with compression because, you know, it's pretty much one thing that you're doing to everything, and you're just looking for that range. So here's the lesson. Start with the piano. Need something climactic. See, it's not terribly climactic, you know, because I didn't play as hard. Now, if you caught me 15 years ago, I would have been playing that piano hard, like really hard, but I don't play that hard anymore, you know. I just kind of let the music breathe. So this is not going to really need as much compression because it's not as out of control. But the way I do this is, if you notice, the sound is coming up, it's staying right about this range. And what I'll do is kind of just chop the top off. What I mean by chop the top off is, just as a overall safety precaution, just tighten it up a little bit. I will come right to where the sound continues to pop right above a particular line, and I'll bring it down so that it stays at that line, and so it just tightens it up. And throughout the whole performance, if there's some place where I hit the piano harder, it'll catch it and it'll keep it relative as far as volume. So for this, I see it's about there. And then I just put a light ratio on it. You know what I mean by light ratio is, you know, you can, wait a minute, why did I do that? Let me see. You're going to have 1 to 1. I usually go like 115 to 125 for most instruments to 1. It's more of a feel thing. I don't like to really think about the math. It's more of a feel thing. 15 and 20 seems to be like pretty light. And once you get to 25, it's pretty decent. Once you get to 30, I use 130 to 1 when I'm doing bass, because bass, again, is usually the most wild. This doesn't need much because it's pretty tame, so I'm literally going to keep it at just 115 to 1 or 15 to 1. Now, here's where you can see what it's doing. It's basically saying every time it gets above this threshold of, what's that, negative 21 or 21, it's going to push the sound down by a certain amount in order to keep it controlled. And this is what this red is. It's pushing it down that much. Now, I can't see how much that is, so I'm going to click this. So it's pushing down like anywhere between -3 up to a full decibel. And that's fine. This isn't this is now just, you know, you can use, what compression is mainly used for is controlling, like I said, and taming. But in controlling and taming, what you're doing is you're gluing the mix together. You're making for it to be like a cohesive mix where everything is playing well with each other and nothing is screaming over top of something else. So this just tightens up the cohesive aspect of it. Same way here. It's not much that I need to do. It's not wild. So I'm just gonna go. Oh, wait a minute. I'm still adjusting the piano. Sorry about that. I was still adjusting the piano by mistake. Okay. Now I could talk about some of these other controls. This is how fast it jumps on it, how fast it attacks. This is how long it takes to release, from crushing the sound or pressing it down. Right now, I don't really need to change any of that. This mix doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting. So let's go to the organ. This is the organ compressor. You see, same kind of place. I want to bring that down and just make that a little bit tighter. I'm gonna do this more aggressively. A little bit more aggressively. And I'm also going to let the release speed longer so that way it's not jumping up and down as much. Organ is smooth, so I like to set a slower release so it can stay smooth. Alright, and then let me see how much that's. Okay, bring it down a little bit more. Nice and tame. Now, what I do from here, if I want to, this is taking away anywhere 1.5 to 2.5 here. So sometimes what you want to do is make that back up within the plugin. Give it back that or some of it. And what it does is, like, I have to show you a diagram, but it's like taking something, pressing it down so that it's nice and tight, and then lifting the whole thing up like higher while it's tight like that. So you're getting the volume, but it's not where you're getting the volume while it's still a tight sound, is the best way to put it. So I'm giving back a decibel of what I lost, or what I lost when I smashed it. And that's good for me. That's good enough. In fact, I might give it a little bit more so it can come out a little bit more in the mix. Now bass, you can look at this. Look at how big that dynamic range is. So bass, I'm definitely, and I could use some different, see, this is the other thing, if you're an engineer watching this, you're probably like, man, you just use the same thing on everything. Yeah, I do. I could go and, look at this list. This is all a list of compressors and different things, and there's so many, and they by all means explore. Sometimes I go through other things if I'm making musical choices and I want to like give some interesting effects, but like the funny thing about mixing is I don't really enjoy mixing as much as I do making music. I just mix because you have to, you got to try to get some kind of basic balance. So I'm not really an engineer that likes to sit going through a bunch of these different ones and trying them on for size. I don't like doing that unless I'm just doing it to, again, create some kind of interesting effects. So yeah, I have a dry mixing style. So you see, I use the same plugin, but it's actually nothing wrong with that. Believe it or not, there are going to be some professional engineers that see this video that go like, yeah, I do the same thing. And that's how I look at it. If you have something that works for you, like they said, if it's not broken, and this happens to be good plugins, these 2-wave plugins. So bass, I'm more aggressive on, because see that, like that loud, it's big. So I'm crushing this more. I'm gonna bring this way down, and I'm gonna put this ratio at 1 to 30 to 1. That's what I want. It's already feeling better. It's taking away up to 5 decibels off the top of the sound. That's a lot. Now the cool part again, because I'm doing this and I'm tightening it up, that means I'll be able to first of all give it some back here. I think I'm gonna give it, out of that 5, I'm gonna give it 2.5. I'm gonna get half of it back. Now, because I've done that, I'm actually gonna be able to bring this bass up now because it's not as wild, so it's gonna sit in the mix better. Let's see if I need to bring it up. Let me go to, okay, top of the bridge. Here we go. Much more present now. I just boosted it. I boosted it from 19.8 to 16.9, so three decibels, and it's way more present. It feels good. Too much. Again, I always second guess myself so that way I can reset, come back to the same place. If you made a good choice, then saying, okay, that sounds good, and then doing this and then easing your way back up, you're going to come to the same place if you made a good choice. So there's a way of double and triple checking yourself. Check it with this kick. Oh yeah, it's pumping now. It's really, this bass is really pumping now. Just from that, it's like, it's more aggressive. So think about that. Maybe another dB. Think about there. And I'm also still leaving room because, again, in the end, I'm going to boost all of this up and I'm going to use a limiter and all kinds of stuff. So I need to really leave mix hot, mix really hot, but gotta leave some room. All right, so last couple, because some of these other ones I don't need compression on. Honestly, I don't even want, I'll do a little bit, like teeny bit. I want these to breathe. So this is 1.10, just precautionary measure. That's it. Now this one, this might be a little bit different. Yeah. So again, it's a beautiful sound, but the way that the way it opens up, I want to limit some of that. So that's where it is. I'm gonna use at least now, like with this, like one. Let me start 1. 20 to 1. Yeah, see, that helped already. And the only other thing I'm gonna do is increase the release time so it sounds smoother and it's not just letting go as fast, but it's staying on the sound a lot longer. Do it this way. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Gonna give it back. One decibel of gain. That feels a whole lot better. And now again, I can raise this overall volume now because now it's a lot more tame. good to me. Take it down like 0.5. It was at 2.7. Let's go to 3.3. Chimes. Simple. Not gonna do much. Just going to just a little bit. Just a little bit, that's all. 1.10 to 1. No makeup this time. I'm just gonna keep it simple. That's just to check it at the door. I'm gonna move it up here, half a dB. Kick. I've been waiting for this. Overheads, you know, I really like my overheads just kind of raw. Let me see if I need any compression on it. Maybe a little compression, because it is kind of wild. It definitely is wild. So let's do compression. I'm gonna go light on this too, because I kind of like the wild aspect of it a little bit. So 115 to 1. Yeah, let's see how this feels. Feels good. Kick. This is the one I've been waiting on. Love. Now this is one thing I love doing in the mix. I love because you can make a kick sound really tight. So first what I'll do is I'll look at the soft versus the loud and kind of see where it's winding up in those two places. Like how soft is the softest and how loud is the loudest. So you can see that was about here. Then it's going to really shoot up one for one of these. Yeah, see that was softer. Okay, so then I do this. Come down until I find this will be chopping the head off of it. I want to come out more. Again, I'm pretty aggressive on kicks when it comes to this in relationship to the other ones. So I want to do that much. And then my ratio usually is always like 1:25 to 1. Look at that. I mean, listen to that. Like, I made that tight. I mean, you can hear it. I leave the release fast because it's a kick drum, so it doesn't sustain. So you want the compression to let go and get ready to do it again. All right, let's see if I want makeup gain. Yeah, up to 4 dB. Let me see over here. I think I'm gonna do. Yeah, 1.5. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Snare, another one of those places where you can make it pop. And this is, again, you see it's down here until you hear that pop and it goes all the way up here. Yep. Gonna cut the head off of that. Add like probably 120, because the snare can, when I go to add final limiting, this snare can kind of, snares a lot of times if you do them right. And I've done a pretty decent job as far as EQ, bringing out the top. Sometimes it can pop too much. So use this to kind of tame it. And again, what's happening is every time it crosses the threshold, the compressor kicks in to push it down so that it doesn't go past that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Hi-hat I usually don't need anything for. Toms, yes. This is the addition onto the gate where we cut the sound off. Now we want to just tighten up the hits that are there, and I saw where that was. This would be right there. Now I'll do simple 120 probably. Yep. That's all I want. And I'm gonna do 1 dB of makeup gain. Okay, now cymbals don't usually bother me as far as anything. Let's see what they look like. They don't usually bother me though. Yeah, these aren't bothering me. I'll just do something just to do something here, just a little touch. But I'm not, I already got it tamed with the volume. And after that, the only thing left is I usually take this, I usually have a verb channel here, it's just a, normal reverb. And all I do is just, let me see, piano. I'll take a little piano. Sometimes they're working, but I'm not going to do it today. And just put a little reverb on it. Let's see the strings. See, that's echoing enough. Snare, definitely. I usually put some reverb on the snare. So I'm gonna do piano, snare, toms, and I think that might be it. I think there's enough tail on this strings. So I'll highlight this, and I'll highlight this, and I'll highlight this, and I will shift option click. This already got them on there. Shift option click this, and I will do buses 1 and 2. And then now all I have to do is pick the setting for the reverb, which I think I might already have one. MGT verb. This kind of fit it. I did a reverb that was a short plate. Well, not a short plate, but a plate with not as much reverb. Because plates are pretty clean and easy to use. for most tracks. And so, yeah, now I'm going to apply some of the piano through it. I know I'm running through these things. I could explain what this is, and I'm going to in a future lesson, but for now, we've been kind of going for a while. So I'm just going to finish up. All right, so play the piano, and I'm going to introduce some reverb until I find the right balance. Right there. Just it's enough on there to equal a tail, but not a whole lot. There. Alright. Let's see what the snare sounds like. I could use multiple reverbs, and I am not. Most of the time I just use one reverb. It almost goes away to your ear when you play it with the rest of the music. That was too much there. There. Okay, toms. I do want these to kind of have a little bit of echo. I'm done. I think I'm done. Okay. The only thing left, and I'll just demonstrate it here really quickly. We'll cover this more deeply in a future episode. But from there, on the master fader, and sometimes I'll create one more fader next to it if I need more effects. But on this one, I don't. On the master fader, I'll do an overall reverb. So now I've done it on every track. I mean, not reverb, EQ. I've done EQ on every track, or most tracks, with the exception of like 2. And then now this is going to be EQ applied to the entire mix as a whole. This is why I was being so subtle, because now I just want to take the track and now just boost everything I do on this. Is going to affect everything. So if I put too much salt already on one part of the mix, then I'm going to put more salt on it. If it's already too salty, then it's going to be too much. So the first thing I usually go for is to make the overall mix clearer in like the intelligibility range. It just makes it a little bit more crisp. So let's try it. Notice that opened it up, made it sound like, wow, like it went from like this to this. And that's the funny thing about it, because we already did make a pretty clear mix, but it's just still has that effect because it's on the whole mix. Second thing I'll do is in this muddy range, like I told you all, I'll do a little 5. Now, again, this doesn't seem like much, just 0.5. You could barely even see the line curve. But don't forget, this is now taking into account all these tracks and doing that. So if you multiply this times all these tracks, that's a big, significant difference. Roll off the bottom just to clean it up. Compression, I'll usually do a little bit of compression just to knock. Again, now we're getting down to like, if you've done a good job, this is why we spent so much time here and panning and EQ, because if you've done a good job, then when you get farther in your mix, you need to do less. And then everything becomes like a nice extra safety precaution on top of a safety precaution, but it's not overbearing. It's just like a nice security in different places. It's kind of like being in a physical environment where you got security just located in different places, so you're all across the board. Okay, so what I'm doing now is applying this compression to the whole mix. So I'm just gonna find where it peaks and maybe just touch it lightly. So that's about here. I move right to the right spot. So all I'm going to do there is just do a light ratio. Because again, we already got it pretty tame. So this is just an extra blanket of security. Just had to double check on that. And now one way to know if your mix is pretty controlled is by looking at your master fader. If your master fader, the volume is not jumping from here to here and just jumping all over the place, then you did a good job. If it stays in a relatively consistent range. If you notice mine does, it's about right here. Kind of doesn't go too far from right here. It's a good sign. Okay, and so now one of the most fun parts, putting on the L2. This is when you finish and you're tightening up everything. You got a good volume, and then you want to take that volume and boost the entire volume of the song so that it fits way more industry standards, or it's louder, just a bigger, punchier mix. Ultra maximizer. Okay. I'm not going to do much because I got this down at -3 and not 0, and I want to make a couple more adjustments so I can make sure this translates over right when I boost this back up as soon as I stop this video. But for the sake of the video, here's how it works. Now if I start taking this threshold down, you're gonna notice the recording getting louder and louder, but not louder in a bad way, just louder in like a more in your face way. So if you notice that, I mean, for a second it was too loud. I pulled it down too far because, again, I forgot about this recording. But if you notice now, between here and here, this one sounds kind of weak, you know, and this one sounds more bold right here. So that's what limiting does. And it's going to take your whole mix and make it sound more big and bold. And that's going to be about it. Yeah, thanks for hanging out and hanging in there for this long mixing session. But I know that this is valuable because when I was learning how to mix, Multi-Platinum Pro Tools was the name of this company that came out with these long vlogs just like this. And I ate them up because I could see so many things that I just didn't know because they were skipped over by other tutorials. So I hope you found a lot useful here. Please drop a line to let me know if there was something useful or there was something I could have done better. And I'm going to just tighten up a little bit more things, and then that's about it. So you pretty much are hearing the final mix right now. Let me go. Last thing I'll do right before we go, and I didn't do this the whole time.
I wanted
Let
to
me
just
play
jump in
the
here real
intro
quick
to
to
the
give
first
some
verse so you
quick
can at least hear
information
how
about
the
this
softer
video
part.
that you're watching.
Thanks so much
It's
for
a
watching.
part of a larger series
care,
that's on
and
my
I'll see you
personal
soon.
brand channel, Aaron Hill TV, and it's called MPE Tutorials and MPE Vlogs. It's a series that I'm starting now, and soon there will be hundreds of videos because this is a daily process that I want to pull you in on. So as you can see, MPE stands for Music Production and Engineering, and the vlogs will be my full-length sessions when I sit down on a daily basis and go through these topics as I'm making music and working on different things. The tutorials will be segments pulled from those vlogs for shorter tutorials about how to do specific things, and I want to offer them both to you. But I wanted to let you know they won't be on the performance track channel because the goal is to keep them separate in order to keep them succinct. The performance track channel is more so for backing tracks and lyric videos, and I don't want to bombard that channel with these, even though they'll be useful to some people. So I wanted to tell you that to say, come on over to the Aaron Hill TV channel on a daily basis. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the notifications button because I'll be releasing these regularly, and I'll only have one here or there, a shorter segment of that on the performance track channel, just to let the new people know who come to that channel that this is going on the other channel. So thanks a lot for bearing through this, and I hope that you find that helpful. And again, head on over to my channel, Aaron Hill TV, like, subscribe, and look out for these daily MPE tutorials and daily MPE vlogs. Thanks a lot.